plan on flying? It's time to upgrade to a Real ID. Because in order to board domestic flights, your driver's license or state-issued ID must be a Real ID, or you'll need another acceptable form of identification. So don't wait. Find out how to get your Real ID at tsa.gov/Real ID. That's tsa.gov/Real ID, or visit your local DMV. And then you'll be cleared for takeoff.
WLIR Hampton Bays. It's the 77 WABC News Hour. Talking the news with Noah Layden. All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now, Talking the News with Noah on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 5 o'clock. Good morning. It is Wednesday, December 25th. Merry Christmas. Your forecast from the Ramsey Mazda Weather Center. Mix of sun and clouds today. Nice day on the way. Cold, but the high is going to be 34. Tonight and overnight, a few clouds hang around, low 25. And then Thursday, sunshine, high 35 as you return all those presents you don't really want. If you are walking out the door with us right now, it is 29 and partly cloudy in Yonkers up in Westchester County, 28 partly cloudy in Sparta over in New Jersey. And it's 32 and cloudy outside our Midtown studios. We got a lot to get to as we work our way up to a very special edition of Sid and Friends in the Morning. Last night, of course, people staying up late. Everybody has their own idea of when to go to Christmas Mass, right? So you have the midnight Mass. You got the ones beforehand for people who don't want to stay up till midnight. But, of course, the ultimate one is at St. Patrick's Cathedral. Some people will say they like the one at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine better. But either way, the city just teeming with people yesterday. Those chapels, those cathedrals packed with people who wanted to celebrate the Christmas season. The cathedral choirs, the orchestra performing, singing classic Christmas carols and anthems. It is a really special moment at St. Patrick's Cathedral like nothing else you'll ever be a part of. And they're hard to get tickets for, but the people who do are very excited to be there.
It's important to reflect and find peace with yourself and peace with others, which is why we wanted to bring our children here just to spread the message of community, whichever form that takes, and to pray for peace in any way that, in any form you pray.
It was kind of fun to be driving into work at my normal hour, which is a ridiculously early hour, and to see people coming home from celebrations in midnight Mass. Some people have their tradition after midnight Mass. They go home and open presents. Everybody's got their own way of doing it, but for the people who showed up for these special services last night, yesterday, they were really moved by what they heard and by what they saw.
I think we're rounding the corner. I think as a country, this is a country that was based on optimism. People came here because they were optimistic for their futures. And I think that we'll round around to that again. Even New Yorkers. New Yorkers are tough. They're the best.
Yeah. So the city under really tight security because we saw what happened in Germany, and we're under tight security anyway because we're in New York City. But if you fanned out across the city, people have that tradition too of going to the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree on Christmas Eve, maybe seeing the last show of the night at Radio City Music Hall to see the Radio City Rockettes and the Christmas Spectacular. The city was packed, the police officers everywhere, and lots of people from out of town. I mean, there is really nothing more special than celebrating Christmas here in New York, and caught up with a lot of families who were here just for that reason. This one from Ohio.
It's bedlam over here. That's amazing. If you're going to celebrate Christmas, come to New York. No matter where you're from,
it's
come
so
to
magical.
New York. Yeah, we love it.
Yeah, everybody kind of saying the same thing, just how magical it is to be in the big city on Christmas.
I've always seen it on TV, and I'm like, okay, Christmas, sometime in my life I'm going to go. Here we are. 2024, we made it happen.
New York is awesome. Probably my favorite part is going to Times Square.
Yeah, if you've never been, of course, blown away by it, that little kid from Ohio. New Yorkers getting ready to celebrate Hanukkah as well. That begins at sundown. Cardinal Timothy Dolan, who presided over the midnight Mass at St. Patrick's Cathedral, was giving a tease earlier in the day about what he was going to talk about.
All the families, all the visits, all the activities of this season. Don't let all of that good stuff crowd out the best stuff at all, the birth of Jesus.
Yeah, so the mass ticket, the only event that is through a lottery because of the high demand. Mayor Adams was there. The mayor is always there. Our own John Katsimatidis and his family were at the service last night. There were other services across the city as well. And that as members of the Jewish community in New York getting ready for Hanukkah. That begins at sundown tonight.
The gift of New York City is that incredible freedom to celebrate one's religion in the greatest city in the world.
Yeah, that's Cantor Mo Glasman. He's from Temple Emmanuel. That's almost like a cathedral, gigantic synagogue here in the city. If you're up and kind of looking for a cup of coffee or a place that's open, it is one of the rare moments where most things are closed. You can remember when we were kids, right? Sundays, everything was closed on Sundays. That was sort of just a general rule. That has changed, of course, big time. Almost nothing is open unless you live in Bergen County where they still have blue laws in effect. So there are things open if you're up and you want something to eat or a cup of coffee or just to get out. 7-Eleven, Circle K, some Duane Reads. I passed some Dunkin' Donuts that were open. The McDonald's down the street from us. Starbucks is open, but we're going to get into that story in a moment because there's some strikes as well that have closed some of those Starbucks down. Some Walgreens are open as well, and then Chinese restaurants, a lot of other restaurants as well. But of course, the Chinese restaurants, they're always open on Christmas as well. Have you seen this one man who's been spreading joy across the city this holiday season, dressing up as a Christmas tree? He's a Washington, D.C. resident. He goes by the name of Mr. Christmas Tree, and he's been running around Times Square over the last couple of days dressed as an evergreen tree and twinkling lights, and he's been doing this for like a decade now.
Best midlife crisis ever.
Yeah, okay, so he's having a midlife crisis. Even though he takes pictures with visitors for tips, he says it's more than a way to make money. Mr. Christmas Tree, as you know, says dressing up as the one, he says, as a tree is giving him a lot of inspiration, makes him feel good about the season. Of course, the tips that he gets is not too bad either.
There's people that aren't in good places or they don't like Christmas. Sometimes I do change those faces around and put smiles on those faces, turn those frowns upside down, and that is a personal delight to me.
Yeah, it's funny. I've actually ran into this guy a couple of times over the last few days as he was hanging around Times Square. I think it's the same guy. I can't, unless there's another Mr. Christmas Tree. And he was out there. Well, he says he'll be out there again today as well.
I didn't like Christmas too much, and I had an epiphany. Then things changed in my life, and I decided to kind of, take this more natural route.
Okay, I get it. WABC News Time, 5:08. Former President Bill Clinton out of the hospital after being treated at a Washington, D.C. hospital for the flu. Medical analyst Vin Gupta says it was wise for Clinton to check himself in and get checked out.
Especially if you're medically higher risk, over 60, or with an underlying medical condition, it's important to get seen. So he did the right thing. He felt unwell, presumably had higher fevers, got tested, probably got early treatment. I'm sure it's on Tamiflu. So it's really important to present to care because early treatment is vital.
A spokesperson says Clinton discharged before Christmas Eve. They added the former president and his family grateful for the care they provided by the hospital staff at MedStar Georgetown University Hospital. The 78-year-old is currently out actually promoting his new book, Citizen, which was released last month. 5 people in the hospital after a chairlift malfunction at the Heavenly Ski Resort in Tahoe, California. The place just packed, of course, for Christmas. Heidi Schmidt was on the same chairlift about 10 minutes before this accident took place.
We were just on that, so thankfully that wasn't us. So, and I said out loud, I'm like, I can't even think about that because that'll make me not want to ski anymore.
Yeah, I bet. The incident happened at the ski resort with some sort of malfunction, caused several people to fall about 30 feet from the lift. A total of 5 people injured in the incident, taken to the hospital. It's unclear what led to that apparent malfunction. We don't have clear word on how those 5 are doing this morning. 5:10 while we're out in California. California's coastline facing serious risks from high waves and flooding, keeping people there on edge. Comes after a major storm that has already claimed one life, caused part of a pier in Santa Cruz to collapse this week, sending 3 people to the ocean. This teen actually witnessed that collapse.
We all ran away. We all ran as fast as we can, like leaving our stuff, running away, just being like, ah! Like scary. So.
And there was a warning of majorly bad weather in California, especially in this area, up until late last night, but we hear things are okay this morning. That Starbucks strike expanded big time. Workers at a second Los Angeles area store, they were walking the picket line yesterday. It's not clear how many of these Starbucks that were set to be open on Christmas Day will be able to open after these workers walked off the job.
It's really cool how that fire just kind of spread. So it's felt amazing. It's been really, really empowering.
The union says more than 5,000 workers at more than 300 stores nationwide protesting yesterday, which was the last planned day of the strike. So it's possible these workers will be on the job, but we're getting conflicting stories about some still staying off the job today.
This is our first national strike in a long time. So for it to be so powerful and so successful and empowering, it's been really cool to see.
Union Representative Mo Mills says the coffee chain's offers have fallen flat and they want better pension, better salary, better benefits.
They offered a 1% raise. I mean, as a non-union worker, before my store organized, my raises were better than that.
Starbucks loves to cut hours, even at the busiest times of the year.
Yeah, so that's some of the complaint is that there's the shift worries that people aren't getting enough hours at Starbucks.
The cost of drinks is going up. Our wages just aren't matching the changes, right?
Yes, so some of the people walking the picket line said they'd be out again today, but we'll have to wait and see if that really takes place. Again, a lot of the Starbucks would be closed normally on Christmas. For the ones that are open, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But the CEO of Starbucks blasting this union, saying that they've given them a pretty good offer and that these workers should get back to work. Now, again, two conflicting stories. One, that they'll be back at work today. Other workers saying they won't show up for work today.
It's estimated he makes over $50,000 an hour, and they can't even offer us a 50-cent an hour raise.
Yeah, it's talking about the CEO of Starbucks. 512, President-elect Trump's backers eager to see his plans for mass deportations, but there's still questions about how that could impact the so-called dreamers who were brought across the border as kids.
Too early because, as you know, a lot of Republicans say this: secure the border and then we'll talk about dreamers.
Texas Congressman Henry Cuellar there says there's bipartisan support for DACA recipients. In an interview recently, the President-elect Trump suggested that when it comes to deportations, they'll be at the back of the line. He promised to do something about their status, but did not go into specifics during that interview. Here's more from this Texas Congressman Henry Cuellar, who thinks Trump sees a value in shielding those DACA recipients.
We certainly want to make sure that the people that are here that have no criminal records, have been here for a long time, that they will be allowed to stay here. What they mean by securing the border will be to be determined.
And then, of course, all the talk is about these mass deportations that are set to begin when after the president takes the oath of office in January. And mass deportations are not the only immigration policy that Republicans will be pushing once President-elect Trump takes office. Texas Congressman Chip Roy wants to change the rules and end birthright citizenship as well.
You can be literally driven across the Rio Grande, have a baby, and suddenly get birthright citizenship. I think that's a mistake, and most Americans think that's bad policy.
So Congressman Roy thinks the changes can be made by executive order. There are about 36 countries that provide automatic citizenship to people born on their soil. Trump had told NBC News that he wanted to make the change during his first administration, but was sidetracked by COVID. So Texas Congressman Chip Roy says now's the time to maybe do this.
You should have to be the child of American citizens to get citizenship. We have a whole cottage industry in China, Mexico, all over the world with people coming here to have babies to get citizenship.
And while we're talking about that Texas congressman down in Texas, the auction of unused pieces of the southern border wall have been stopped for now. Senator John Cornyn says it's outrageous that the scrap was being sold for cash instead of being used for security.
The Biden administration is determined to destroy our country by opening our borders to anybody and everybody who wants to come across.
The auction house that was tasked with selling the metal fencing in Arizona has halted bidding under threats of action from Texas. A spokesman for the Department of Defense pushing back on the Republicans' claims, saying the sales were in accordance with the National Defense Authorization Act. But Senator John Cornyn says something more was up here.
I think we're going to be paying the price.
Yeah, so we'll have to see. All right, 5:15. Let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. Good morning, Justin Allen.
Good morning, Noam Aladen. Thank you very much. So we'll start here with a look ahead to the NFL.
and a special early start to Week 17 thanks to Christmas Day action on the gridiron starting this afternoon at 1 p.m. The 14-1 Kansas City Chiefs will be in Pittsburgh to battle the 10-5 Steelers as 2.5-point favorites before the 10-5 Baltimore Ravens touch down in Houston to face the 9-6 Texans as 5.5-point favorites there. Also out of the professional football camp, New York Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers offered an unusually curt response yesterday when asked about owner Woody Johnson boosting the perception of a rift between the two. Rodgers, discussing his future, said he must be in, quote, plans of multiple people, starting with the ownership. For the Jets to retain him in 2025, the future Hall of Famer sidestepped a question on whether he believes Johnson wants him back. Quote, "You should ask Woody," Rodgers said tersely. Has he had any conversations with Johnson about his future? No, says Rodgers. On Monday, he poked Johnson during his weekly appearance on the Pat McAfee show, saying he has never been released by a teenager, a reference to a recent story by The Athletic that said Johnson is influenced by his teenage sons, Brick and Jack. A source told ESPN recently that he'd be, quote, shocked if Johnson, 77, brings back Rodgers, who is under contract for 2025 but hasn't played up to expectations. That's up for debate, really. Not much of the Jets' struggles this year really has been Aaron Rodgers' fault, but that's a conversation for another time. With the Jets now 4-11, closing out their most disappointing season in recent memory, the game is the secondary storyline for Rodgers, who continues to make headlines here. To the hardwood, where a gift comes for New Yorkers on this Christmas Day in the form of New York Knicks basketball. Today at noon, the Knicks will tip off the day's festive action in the NBA out in San Antonio against the Spurs. You get NBA basketball all afternoon long. Finally, looking ahead to tonight's NHL action, it'll just be the double skating locally getting set to welcome in the Carolina Hurricanes for a 7 p.m. puck drop. That's your sports gnome. Nothing much really going on in the world of sports, I guess you could say. It's that festive time of year, but you get a full slate of NBA action today, some NHL action tonight, and of course two of those big NFL Week 17
and good games. Actually,
yeah, good games today. A lot to look forward to. You get the 14-1 Chiefs, and listen, I mean, I would take the Steelers money line if you're a betting man in that one. Steelers look good lately. They get George Pickens back, so look out for the Steelers against the Kansas City Chiefs today. Hey, that's just my 2 cents. That's your sports.
And Beyonce does the halftime show.
Oh, is she really?
Yeah.
That would be your top story of the day. That's your sports.
What are you implying there?
Nothing at all. Nothing else. To the left.
Put a ring on it.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Back to you, Noam.
WABC News Time, 5:19. The daughter-in-law of President-elect Donald Trump, Lara Trump, taking her name out of consideration for Marco Rubio's Senate seat. She says she has a big announcement planned next month.
But if she's not a senator, if Lara Trump is in some other political position, she already has the ear of President-elect Trump, and she could have much more influence over shaping policy coming from outside of the Senate rather than within it.
All right. Barry University political analyst Sean Foreman there says Governor DeSantis will appoint a senator to serve until the next election. He believes DeSantis will select someone who will be more loyal to him rather than Trump. Of course, the two of them have had their moments of not getting along. The thought is maybe his wife, Casey DeSantis, could be the one he picks.
And maybe Matt Gaetz thinks that, now that it's out there and he survives, he could still run for something next year. So I wouldn't put it past him to run for senator or governor next year.
Yeah, all right, but he won't be the one appointed. So who will get that final appointment from DeSantis?
I think that DeSantis is probably going to pick someone who he's much closer to personally, whether it be his chief of staff, a friend or family member that we're not considering now. I would even see him picking his wife, Casey DeSantis.
All right, 5:21. Let's go down to Washington. President Biden's death row commutations being met with both praise and condemnation. Experts say the states with death penalties can press new charges if they want to.
There is no statute of limitations on murder in any state.
Yeah, so Andy Trusevich, he's an attorney in Texas where 7 current and former federal inmates scheduled for execution, 5 of them stabbed and killed their cellmates. He says the Texas Attorney General could indict and prosecute them on new charges, seeking to put them back on death row.
Indicting, prosecuting, and putting them on state death row.
Yeah, the Attorney General there, Ken Paxton, has a strong history of support for capital punishment. NASA's Parker Solar Probe has made its closest ever flyby of the sun by a human-made object, approaching with 3.9 million miles of the sun's surface yesterday. Mission Control will have no contact with the probe for about 3 days, and the mission designer says she's waiting anxiously to see what takes place.
I'm pretty comfortable that we will hear good news and get more data from the spacecraft.
Yeah, this is pretty wild, the closest we've ever gotten to the sun. If all goes well, NASA expects to see close-up photos of the sun sometime come January. WABC News Time, 5:22. New research shows drinking coffee can lower the risk of certain cancers.
The University of Utah School of Medicine research published in the journal Cancer shows people who drank more than 4 cups of coffee a day, compared with folks who don't drink coffee, had a 17% lower odds of neck and head cancer, 30% lower chances of mouth cancer, and they're 22% less likely to get throat cancer. Researchers used data from prior studies involving thousands of people with cancer and thousands of people who are healthy. I'm Michael Kastner.
5:22, let's go out to California. A man-woman being released from prison after serving 17 years of life sentences for a murder they did not commit. The Los Angeles County DA, Nathan Hochman, announcing that Charlotte Pleitez and Lombardo Palacios have been exonerated. Palacios says he's trying to wrap his head around the fact that he's spending Christmas with his family today.
It's been unreal. I still can't believe it. I still can't believe that I'm free. I'm the happiest man in the world.
DA Hochman says the two wrongly convicted of the March 2007 murder of Hector Flores in a shopping parking lot in East Hollywood. Some new evidence pointing to a new suspect. So that's why these two are back home today.
But I also think it would be wrong not to say that something went really wrong with the system to cause a mistaken conviction like this. A sentence of 50 to life for something I had absolutely nothing to do with whatsoever.
My guess is next is some sort of handsome payday for the fact that they're behind bars. Palacios says now that he's home, he'll have a lot of catching up to do.
It's just the little things that you miss in there. The little things. You know, I got to watch football on a flat screen TV. Yeah, Cowboys.
Yeah, Palacios, of course, says he's grateful beyond words to be a free man this morning. 5:24. Nuna Baby Essentials recalling over 600,000 car seats over a harness issue.
The company says the recall affects Rava models made from July 16th, 2016 to October 25th, 2023. Debris could get stuck where the front harness adjuster button is and cause the mechanism to fail, resulting in a loose harness. According to Nuna, a loose harness can increase the risk of injury in a crash. I'm Michael Kastner.
WABC News Time, 5:24. In the next few weeks, about 1 million taxpayers going to receive the special payment of up to $1,400 from the IRS.
The payments are for those who didn't claim a tax credit on their 2021 returns, which was available for people who missed COVID relief payments or didn't receive the full amount. The payments will be directly deposited into their bank accounts or mailed as checks arriving by late January 2025. The maximum payment of $1,400 is for those who filed a 2021 tax return but either left the credit section blank or mistakenly indicated they didn't qualify. I'm Brian Shook.
The Food and Drug Administration wants to investigate the health impact of artificial food coloring. That's music to the ears of healthcare workers who say the current studies suggest there might be a link with diabetes and ADHD.
Some of the children might be a little bit more sensitive to dyes than others.
Christine Mercedes, the doctor with the University of Texas Health System, says the problem is all with the studies that have been done. They've been small. The FDA's deputy commissioner telling lawmakers it's been over a decade since the safety of red dye number 40 has been reevaluated. And for red dye number 3, there's a plan to ban it from foods. This has all been the talk in Europe as well, where they've banned a lot of this stuff already.
Dyes are only present in ultra-processed foods. And those are the food that you don't want to feed your kids. Thinking about a child in development, what's the impact on them? It's going to be higher than someone, an adult.
526. Maybe you were listening to The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morati, who was talking about how everybody in the house has the stomach flu. Apparently, this is the big present people are getting for Christmas. Colorado Department of Public Health, a number of departments of health across the country are reporting an enormous amount of norovirus outbreaks this year, and people showing up at the hospital who've gotten really, really sick.
We really want to isolate this bug and not spread it to all of our family who's visiting.
Yes, so in Frank's case, he said he decided not to go see his family last night because he didn't want to give them this. So the contagious stomach bug, well, it causes vomiting, nausea, diarrhea, stomach pain, all kinds of fun stuff that you don't want to have this time of year. Nissan and Honda could be merging soon.
The Japanese automakers announced Monday that they will hold talks over the next 6 months about a possible merger. If the two companies merge, it would create the world's third biggest automaker, trailing only Toyota and Volkswagen in sales. This comes as the companies try to compete with Chinese automakers and electric vehicle manufacturers such as Tesla. Honda and Nissan hope to have a holding company set up by August of 2026. I'm Michael Kastner.
WLIR Hampton Bays. It's the 77 WABC News Hour. Talking the news with Noah Layden. All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now, Talking the News with Noah on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 5:35. Good morning. It is Wednesday, December 25th. Merry Christmas. Your forecast from the Ramsey Mazda Weather Center, a mix of sun and clouds today, high 34. Tonight and overnight, a few clouds hang around, low 25. And then tomorrow, sunshine, a little bit warmer, high 35. If you are walking out the door with us right now, so happy you are, 29, partly cloudy in Yonkers up in Westchester County. It's 28 and partly cloudy in Sparta over in New Jersey. And it's 33 and cloudy outside our Midtown studios. We'll start this half hour in Midtown where the holiday traditions continue. The St. Patrick's Cathedral Midnight Mass with Timothy Cardinal Dolan presiding. Tickets required, of course. The hardest ticket to get in town, but if you got in, you get to be at the service of the year. People moved by what they see and what they take in.
You can feel the spirit of Christmas really inside.
It was really special. We actually couldn't get a seat, so we were just in one of the chapels, like standing, but it was totally worth it.
Christmas Eve Mass tradition dates back nearly 150 years. The tradition's been going on since then. It dates back to 1879 when the cathedral on Fifth Avenue first opened its doors for one of the holiest celebrations in the Catholic faith. Parishioners packed the iconic cathedral for family mass as well. They filled the pews with candles lit, their loved ones by their side, connected to the divine.
This is such a tradition for us. Like, we love coming here, like, year after year.
Sometimes we need to come back home and get rejuvenated. It was beautiful. It was really emotional. I got chills. I was really happy. He was finally able to receive communion in a place he was baptized.
That's a mom who showed up with her son yesterday. The Mass so popular that crowds were turned away at the door. In fact, there was guards outside the door telling people, no, you can't get in. You need a ticket for midnight Mass at St. Pat's.
We can't get in for Mass. So, a little bummed out, but that's okay. It's still Christmas.
Yeah, of course. So other families were just taking it all in, hoping to get in. They did not get in either.
Annual Christmas celebration with the little one, with the family, and also to commemorate the birth of Christ, our Lord and Savior.
I feel great since it's Christmas Eve and that I got to see the Christmas tree.
Yeah, that's the right way to look at it. WABC News Time, 5:39. Of course, festivities beginning for Christmas Day and Christmas Eve. Or if you are Italian, of course, you know about the Feast of the Seven Fishes, which if you don't like fish, that's a lot of fish to get through. At Peter's Fish Market in Midland Park, this is a really popular place to get the seven fishes. Lines were long time customers. Those say the wait is worth it as they get ready to either have the seven fishes. A lot of people do it on Christmas Eve. Some people do Christmas Day.
For Italian Americans, really, Christmas is today.
It's the rush. This is the Super Bowl of the fish industry, so to speak.
And at St. Peter's Fish Market in Midland Park, they bring in friends to help out because the lines are so long. And it's become an annual tradition where these people show up to help the family get these fishes out. And people, of course, leaving the store happy.
Shrimps and clams and scallops. And
crab claws, shrimp, swordfish, flounder fillet. Because the fish is so fresh, you don't get, stuck with bad fish. It's always fresh.
Yes, so at St. Peter's, they were telling us what the most popular fish items are for the Feast of Seven Fishes.
One of the most popular items is the clean squid. Old school traditions are fading a little bit, but people love shrimp, probably the biggest seller. And then a lot of oysters and squingile is a big item, another Italian tradition.
It is interesting, a place that we normally go to as Italian family, they've pulled back. They don't do all seven because there's just not an appetite for all seven. But I know there's a lot of families that do all seven. For the 100th year, hundreds of Christmas carolers, there we go, gathered Washington Square Park last night for a tradition that has stood the test of time. They get together to sing Christmas carols in Washington Square Park. It's really a great moment.
Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King.
100 years, when you think about it, we've been through so many major stages of world history, and yet this is one thing that's just remained consistent. They want it to feel like it's for the neighborhood, whether you're from the other side of the world or you're from next door.
Yeah, so this Christmas Eve tradition brings people from all over the globe. It's kind of like St. Pat's in a way, where people, that's what they come to New York for. They want to be part of this. And so it was a beautiful night last night. It wasn't too cold. So there was just, the park was just filled with people singing Christmas carols. There's a band that comes out every year that plays the music. It's the same people who've been part of this for decades.
I've personally done this for 40 years.
Wow.
But this has happened for 100 years. I'm not that old.
Yeah, so, it's an annual tradition for many people, part of their Christmas Eve.
It's always wonderful.
With so much else going on in the world, it's just lovely to have a celebration and a place to sing and be together.
Yeah, a very nice night there in Washington Square Park. 542. Of course, for many, it can be a blue Christmas. I know my family's had a rough year. There's a number of deaths in the family, close friend passing away, and you can imagine the holidays just sort of can be overwhelming when you have something like that. And that is the case for Solalei Rain. She says the holidays are not the same for her. Her 18-year-old son was shot and killed while on a vacation in Mississippi this year. So this is their first Christmas without him. And she says the traditions are kind of gone. She says she's not feeling the holiday, and you can understand why. She says she got the call. He was shot and killed the day after Mother's Day. And so she says moving ahead, it's been tough to celebrate anything because he's not here, her son, Temmie.
He was always just extra energized for some reason, and we always loved to see him happy, and if anyone in the family was sad, he was always cheering people up.
And she actually got together to try to help her out with dozens of other mothers with the same pain of losing a child. There's this great organization that's called Not Another Child, is a nonprofit, and it brings together these families who've lost their children in violent situations. And so she says that was a little bit helpful, but she says, you know what, I'm just not feeling the Christmas thing this year.
We would, exchange gifts and watch movies, we talk.
Yeah, so she says she's going to do her best to get through this holiday. She wrote some poetry that she's going to read today when family members come over, but she says it won't be an all-out celebration. I know a lot of people listening to me right now may feel that way, kind of blue. Maybe you've lost a loved one over the last year.
Just knowing that his energy, his presence keeps me going. So to other families, I would definitely say to carry on as if he's still there, or their family, their loved one is still there.
Yeah, I think that's a good message. 544. Well, I got to get to some real news, and it's not all good. A 36-year-old stabbed to death in Mount Hope up in the Bronx on Christmas Eve. There was some sort of fight inside a laundromat. We don't know exactly what took place, but the two men started arguing. One tossed a cell phone on the table. Two other people got into some sort of verbal argument, and it ended up with this 36-year-old dad.
We did hear something, screaming, running.
Yeah, and an employee at a nearby bodega said he heard the scream and ran in to see if he could help. A neighbor shocked that someone would be stabbed on Christmas Eve.
It's a pretty cool neighborhood for the most part, right? It has its issues, but it's pretty good.
I'm going to be more vigilant and more attentive to people around here. Wow, that's terrible.
Yeah, really terrible. We reached out. The NYPD do not have the victim's name. The person that killed him, that stabbed him, he's on the loose this morning. All right, 5:45. Let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. Good morning, Justin Ellick.
Good morning, Noam Layden. I'll start here with a look ahead to the NFL and a special early start to Week 17 thanks to Christmas Day action on the gridiron. Starting this afternoon at 1 p.m., the 14-1 Kansas City Chiefs will be in Pittsburgh to battle the 10-5 Steelers as 2.5-point favorites before the 10-5 Baltimore Ravens touch down in Houston to face the 9-6 Texans as 5.5-point favorites there. Also out of the professional football camp, New York Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers offered an unusually curt response yesterday when asked about owner Woody Johnson, boosting the perception of a rift between the two. Rodgers discussing his future, said he must be, quote, in the plans of multiple people, starting with the ownership for the Jets to retain him in 2025. The future Hall of Famer sidestepped a question on whether he believes Johnson wants him back, quote, saying, "You should ask Woody," Rodgers said. Has he had any conversations, I said, with Johnson? Rodgers was then asked. Rodgers answering, quote, "No." On Monday, he poked Johnson during his weekly appearance on the Pat McAfee show, saying he has never been released by a teenager, a reference to a recent story by The Athletic that said Johnson is influenced by his teenage sons, Brick and Jack. A source told ESPN recently that he'd be, quote, shocked if Johnson brings back Rodgers, who is under contract for 2025 but hasn't played up to expectations, according to some. With the Jets now 4-11, closing out their most disappointing season in recent memory, the game is the secondary storyline for Rodgers, who does remain in the headlines. To the hardwood, where a gift comes for New Yorkers on this Christmas Day in the form of New York Knicks basketball. Today at noon, the Knicks will tip off the day's festive action in the NBA out in San Antonio against the Spurs. And finally, looking ahead to tonight's NHL action, it'll just be the Devils skating locally, getting set to welcome in the Carolina Hurricanes for a 7 p.m. puck drop. That's your Sports Gnome, and I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
Thank you very much, Justin. WABC news time is 5:49. A violent robbery outside a Marshall's department store in Riverhead, Long Island, leaving the community on edge. It happened in the parking lot as holiday shoppers were finishing up last-minute purchases. According to Riverhead Town Police, a man targeted a woman, dragged her to the ground between two parked vehicles.
That's very frightening. I live here over 11 years.
I can't believe that something like that would happen.
Yeah, the thief stole $500 from the victim's pocket, attempted to take her wallet as well.
I usually come here with my kids, my husband. We do our shopping here, so I'm very surprised.
Investigators say that thief ran off after a bystander intervened. They brought in K-9 unit to search for this guy, but he's still on loose this morning. That woman, thankfully, is going to be okay. Recreational marijuana has caught on big time in New Jersey, with sales topping $1 billion this year.
Well, it's all going to pot. Cannabis sales in New Jersey are 25% brisker than last year. The Cannabis Regulatory Commission also says 2024 has set records for single-day pot purchases. On Green Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, sales hit $6 million. Another historical high this year, not surprisingly, $420. Marijuana sales for the quarter ending in September totaled $790 million, with tax revenues of more than $43 million. I'm Sarah Lee Kessler.
WABC News Time 5:51. Let's bring it into the city. No bail being set for the illegal immigrant accused of igniting a Brooklyn subway rider over the weekend and watching her burn to death.
Sebastian Zepeda Khalil was charged with first-degree murder and arson at Tuesday's arraignment. He's accused of pouring a flammable liquid over a sleeping woman on an F train, flicking his lighter on her clothes, and then watching her die from the Flatbush subway platform. The 33-year-old Guatemalan, who's in the U.S. illegally after first crossing the Arizona border in 2018, reportedly told police he doesn't remember doing it, saying he's a heavy drinker and was all boozed up Sunday morning. Zepeda Khalil is due back in court again Friday. I'm Mark Mayfield.
And the woman burned to death on that Brooklyn subway train, she's still a Jane Doe.
The victim, who was deliberately set on fire by a man she didn't know, dying a horrific death, still has no name. She was burned so badly, police are struggling to lift a fingerprint, and she had no ID in the multiple bags she was carrying. She had a walker with her, too. The Brooklyn medical examiner says an autopsy showed the woman died of smoke inhalation and thermal injuries. An illegal Guatemalan immigrant, Sebastian Zapata Khalil, is charged with first-degree murder and arson. I'm Sarah Lee Kessler.
We've been talking a lot about congestion pricing. January 5th is when it begins. There have been all these lawsuits trying to stop it, but it seems none of them have worked. So get ready to dig deep. $9 to drive below 60th Street in Manhattan come January 5th.
Congestion pricing is less than 2 weeks away from starting in Manhattan, and so far lawsuits have not been successful from stopping it. Monday, a judge denied a request to delay the tolling program until those lawsuits could be heard. Governor Hochul.
We've made multiple offers to settle this lawsuit. Very generous offers.
The $9 toll with Easy Pass takes effect south of 60th Street on January 5th. I'm Lisa Ritchie for 77 WABC News.
WABC News Time 5:53. Huge crowd going to be part of this Christmas watching. A reenactment of George Washington's famous Christmas Day crossing of the Delaware in my hometown of Trenton, New Jersey. As a kid, this was a tradition in my family to get up to watch this reenactment every year. The organizer, Jennifer Martin, says reenactors will be dressed in Revolutionary War attire in Washington Crossing on the Pennsylvania and New Jersey side as they row from Pennsylvania to New Jersey. And remember, they surprised the Hessians, which was this battle that was instrumental in beating back the British. Here she is talking about it.
I have reenactors attending as far as Michigan. I have reenactors that are coming with 3 generations with them, giving up that time to be with us to do this historic reenactment.
Now, when I was a kid, they would get a famous person to play George Washington every year. It seems they don't do that anymore. But organizers expect up to 10,000 people to come out to the Delaware this morning. It runs from about 12 p.m. till 3 o'clock. And there'll be somebody on site narrating as they get into this wooden rowboat and cross from the Pennsylvania side to New Jersey.
We have some great speeches from some of the major players, Washington, Knox, who is the artillery commander, and we will have soldiers getting into all 4 of our Durhams and making the river crossing.
If you've never gone to this, it's a lot of fun. And if you're up early opening presents and you've eaten breakfast and looking for something to do, I highly suggest heading down to Washington's Crossing. Online fundraisers now hoping to help vendors impacted by the fire that tore through that city holiday market near Macy's.
More than a dozen vendors are missing out on holiday sales after an electrical fire tore through the holiday market at Herald Square last week. The damage prevented some of the little shops from reopening for business. Some vendors say the insurance process has been lengthy. Even though most of Herald Square Market is back up and running ahead of the holiday, a GoFundMe was set up to help the 18 vendors who lost out on business. James Flippin for 77 WABC News.
There's this woman in the Bronx who was going through a real rough time during COVID. She had lost her job. She had no money. She didn't know what to do. She wanted to do something special for her kids for Christmas. So for some reason, she said, I don't know why, I just decided that I would write a letter to the U.S. Army Recruiting Battalion and Bronx Recruiting Station. And not thinking she'd ever get a response, but she did. These U.S. Army soldiers showed up at her house at the height of COVID with presents for all of her kids. And it's a tradition they've continued. Yesterday, they showed up with 50 presents for the Santos family on Christmas Eve.
Hey, Merry Christmas.
Have you been naughty or nice?
Yeah, so Nelsy Santos wrote this heartfelt Dear Santa letter back in 2020 to this battalion in the Bronx, and the soldiers say they never forgot her, and they want to make sure every Christmas after that is good. So even as the kids have gotten a little bit older, they still show up with presents like they did yesterday.
In that time, it was a difficult time for everybody, and I didn't have a job. It was very difficult for us. And I decided to write a letter. I sent them, and I don't know, magic happened.
Yeah.
magic happened.
Yeah, nice on the part of these soldiers who use their own money, by the way, to buy all these presents over the last 4 years. And they didn't want any credit. They didn't even want to talk to the cameras that showed up. Only one soldier said this.
I don't really think it's predominantly about gifts, but rather the gift of being together.
Yeah, so they just wanted to see this family smile, and they got that.